So this morning, as we finish out ReFrame, I wanted to talk about the holidays since we're getting into that season this week, and maybe we can look at some new ways to look at the holidays. So before we get into that, I wanted to start with what are your favorite Christmas or Thanksgiving memories? And this is not a rhetorical question. This is one you guys can talk and we can respond. I know it's church, but it's okay. We can talk. Food. Food's a big one, yeah. Board games after dinner. Is this Thanksgiving, Christmas, both? Both, nice. Food for both, I'm assuming, with Christmas and, yeah, Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Playing cards. Mm-hmm. Any favorite? Yeah. Building Legos, a favorite of mine as well. Also, birthdays and the kids' birthdays and any holidays. Yeah. Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The whole culture of it. How everyone kind of shifts gears a little bit. Yeah. That's cool. Big family meals, getting together with everybody. Yeah. Do you get to travel or do you stay put? Yeah. When kids get older, things get weird, yeah. Anything else? Any other thoughts? I thought I saw a hand up. You guys, you don't have to raise. You can just talk too. You don't have to raise your hand. We're grown-ups. It's okay. Okay, so I wanted to share this is my most memorable moment. It's not my favorite moment, but it's definitely the most memorable Christmas I ever had. So I think I was in 4th or 5th grade, and it's something I like to call Beanie Baby Christmas. So, have you guys heard this story? No, campers never heard this. Okay, so 4th or 5th grade. This is like a year after the Beanie Baby craze. Okay, so everyone went nuts for Beanie Babies for a while, and then the year after that Christmas. Okay, I woke up in the middle of the night and I went to go get my little sister to see if she wanted to go look at presents in the middle of the night. She wouldn't wake up. It was like the first year she's like, "No, leave me alone." I was like, "Okay." So I go down the stairs to the living room where the presents are, and I keep tripping on stuff all the way down the stairs. And I'm like, who left shoes on the stairs on Christmas Eve? This is so weird. So I go downstairs, and there's nothing under the tree. Nothing with my name on it. I'm like, what is going on? Santa hasn't come. Weird. So I was disappointed. I went back to bed, wake up in the morning, and there is a line of Beanie Babies from my bedroom door down the stairs, the things I tripped on, all the way to the living room where there is a basket of Beanie Babies. So I told my boys this story, and they're like, "You got Beanie Babies for Christmas?" I was in 4th grade. I was a little disappointed. My sister, who was younger than me, also got an American Girl doll and a million Beanie Babies. This was her favorite Christmas, because I FaceTimed her after I told my kids that story, and she said, "Yeah, that was my favorite Christmas of all time. That was amazing." And there's a picture of me somewhere that will never see the light of day, of I'm laying on the floor with my arm like this, with there's Beanie Babies all over my back. No one will ever see this picture. It'll be burned when I find it again, but it exists. There's a real one out there. So Beanie Baby Christmas is my most memorable Christmas. Not my favorite. That's okay, though. So another question for the class. What are some words you would use to describe the holiday season? Larry said pageantry. That's a good word. Cheerful. Stressful. Yeah, for sure. Maybe more for parents than for kids. Hectic, yeah. It seems short. Like there's only so much time, and it's busy. A lot of busyness. Expensive. I kind of see where Larry feels, where he leans on the holiday theme. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Cozy. Yeah. Maybe on a day like today, it's a good day to put the fire on and watch Elf or something. Yeah. What was that? It is magical, especially in Northeast Ohio. We most of the time have snow, so it feels like a Christmas movie sometimes, right? Even at Thanksgiving, it feels like a Christmas movie. Anything else? So there's lots of goodness that comes with the holidays. Lots of joy, seeing family, seeing friends, connecting, gifts, all those things, meals, like all the things we talked about. There's a lot of goodness, but also the holidays can be really hard for people. It can be really difficult for people who are struggling, who are going through grief, who are mourning a loss, right? So here's an idea. Have you ever been on social media, Facebook, whatever, Instagram, and you're scrolling and you see that somebody gets a puppy, and then you scroll and you see that there's a tsunami in Southeast Asia, and then you scroll and then you see that someone's son has graduated high school, and then you see that you scroll again, there's like a car crash, and you get this like emotional whiplash, right? Going from good thing to bad thing, and especially if you're just on a news site, it's just bad, 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 right? But if you're on social media and you're seeing your friends' stuff, so it can be good and it can be bad, and it feels like our monkey brains can't handle that kind of emotional whiplash, and I think sometimes it makes us numb to the world around us. Does that make sense? Because we can't absorb all that information. We have not evolved far enough to absorb world news. Like we are not that far away from tribes where we lived in small groups of 50 people or less, and we knew of everybody's each other's lives. Now we have 300, 400 friends on Facebook, and there's no way you can know that many people in your brain. You can't handle it. So it's our brains haven't evolved far enough as our technology has, and I think that has done something to our emotions, and it changes our psyche a little bit, and maybe puts some blinders on maybe the needs of others we're not aware of. So the holidays can bring up lots of feelings, like we talked about, like nostalgia, love, comfort, but also anxiety, depression, anger, regret, loss, grief. All these things can pop up, and it's sometimes it's hard to pick one, right? And so let's look at maybe how we can reframe this a bit, so we don't have to pick one. Okay. So grief. Let's look at the first thing here: reminders of family or friends that have passed. Grief is a huge part of the holidays for some people, especially as we get older. I just lost my grandpa last week, and my grandma died 8 years ago around Christmas time. So whenever we have holidays together, it's a reminder of the people who aren't here anymore, right? And when there's big deaths near the holidays, it's like a constant reminder of how and it can alter the experience, right? It changes it from this joyful thing when you're a kid to getting presents to grandma's not here anymore. And we don't always, as an American culture, do well incorporating grief into our celebrations, right? We either go all in with one feeling or another, and it's hard to have that nuance sometimes when it comes to holidays. We don't have traditions that honor our loved ones, like Mexicans have the Day of the Dead. There's other holidays, we just celebrated an ancient Scottish holiday that celebrates the dead as well. It takes place around Halloween, and we don't do that very well in America, though. We don't honor our dead, or if we do, it's like completely just about that. It's not incorporating it into the holiday, right? So I think sometimes we can, if we have photos or laying around during the holidays, or we tell old stories about people who have passed, it's a healthy way to honor them and respect it, while still being in a family and respecting each other and grieving as a group, which we don't always do well as well. Sometimes we internalize that grief, right? So I've seen in both my wife's family and in my family how deaths, and maybe you've seen this in your own families, deaths can either bring families closer together when there's a loved one that has died, or it can draw them farther apart. And you never know how it's going to go. Sometimes you can have an idea if you kind of look big picture, but you really never know how people are going to go one way or the other. And everybody grieves differently. There's no path. The 5 steps of grief it's not linear at all, and everybody grieves in different ways. But I think as families we can share that together and talk about it, and we don't have to be on the same page, but we can all talk about it and be open and communicate. And I think that really helps bring families together when we're talking about it. Just this past week when I was going through my grandpa's funeral, we were telling stories the whole time, and about he was big on putting smiley faces on stuff, like smiley face stickers. Never told us why, and it enraged my grandma. So he would have it on the TV remote. He'd have it on like a doorknobs, his car. It was sticky like smiley face stickers everywhere, and we had no idea why. So before the funeral, I went to Hobby Lobby and I got smiley face stickers, and I gave them to all our family members, and we all had them on our shirts, and I put one on Grandpa's shirt too at the funeral. And it was really good. It was a good reminder, and it was a healthy way for us all to grieve and be together, just by that stupid smiley face that was on everything. So let's talk about broken relationships in a very safe way. No family's perfect, and damaged relationships can darken a holiday celebration because you never know who's going to show up sometimes, and maybe there's somebody showing up that you don't, or you're not ready to see, or you don't want to see. There's also divorce, there's abuse, there's separations, there's severed relationships, and all these things can be really hard to navigate as a family. Maybe there's a great uncle who wasn't super connected and ask, where's so and so, and long after you've broken up or separated, and that can be really painful. It can bring up all these feelings that you weren't expecting to feel eating turkey with your family. Just a quick minor example. This is a small example. A few years ago, I went to a Thanksgiving, and I have a great aunt who I only see every couple years, right? And she pulled me aside, and she's really goofy, and she pulled me aside. And she goes, are you a full pastor? And she meant, am I like a senior pastor, or am I still doing youth ministry, which isn't a full pastor to her? And I knew what she meant right when she said it. So I said, because I'm still working with teenagers, and I said, yeah, I'm a full pastor. So in her mind, it's probably a lie. To me, I'm a full pastor. I'm still doing it. But because I knew she was unintentionally trying to minimize my career, which hurts me more than it hurts her. She probably doesn't even remember the conversation, but for me, it was about like I'm going to stand up to myself a little bit, and it's a minor example. It's just a minor it's kind of the knife a little bit when a family says something painful, but it was minor. But it's an example of how sometimes there's hurt that can come up. Somebody may say something accidentally. Maybe your uncle drinks a little bit too much. It says something painful about a divorce or something. Who knows? But those things can happen around family, and it can be really hard. So let's see, where am I at here? It can build a lot of anxiety too. It can be really hard to, even the drive to the family's house can build anxiety or stress in you. Like, oh God, I hope Aunt Jill isn't there because she's going to say something mean again. And every family has an Aunt Jill or Uncle Bill that just says something painful, right? And so you have to prepare yourself for pain that you don't want to experience on a fun holiday, right? And also, holidays can be a reminder that life isn't what we want. There's a lot of sadness and grief that can cloud the holidays, and we can get regretful or mournful of what our life isn't anymore. So how do we make meaning when things are hard? Because holidays can be very hard for a lot of people. How do we make meaning? Does anyone have any thoughts? Or is this rhetorical? How do we move forward when life changes, when there's been a big upset in the family, when there's been a death, when there's been a loss or a divorce or a separation? How do we move forward? New traditions. That's a great idea. Yeah. Eat candy canes. That's a great idea. It really is. You can't be sad eating a candy cane, right? How do we enjoy the holidays when life has been hard? Maybe we've had a really bad year this year. Maybe there's been a lot of bad things. It could be work, it could be family, it could be anything. How do we enjoy this season where we're inundated with lights and colors and sounds? How are we supposed to enjoy that if we're not feeling that inside? It can be really hard, right? Yeah, your life right now is a gift, and it may not be where you want to be, or it may not be what you expect it to be, but this is still, we're still here, you're still breathing, and there's meaning in that, and there's purpose behind that. And I think that's what we as a church are trying to find, is that purpose and meaning, so that we're not walking around aimlessly or wasting time in a way. There's so much time you can waste just and not being depressed. Depression's not a waste, but there's meaning in the depression. There's purpose behind that. And how do we find that, right? And even during the Christmas season in America especially, there's a lot of consumerism, and there's ads, and it's always in your face. And sometimes those ads if you pay attention, it's a lot of nuclear family stuff, and it's a lot of focused on kids. And if you aren't a person who has kids or has a nuclear family anymore, if your kids have grown up or whatever, it can probably create a little bit of sadness or a twinge of like, oh, we don't have that anymore. We say all the time at home, we've only got 18 years with these, 18 Christmases with these kids, and so what are we going to do? How are we going to spend that time? And you don't have to give in to these certain narratives, like my great aunt who thinks that I'm not a full pastor. I don't have to believe her. You know, I see she's part of my family and I love her. I only see her every 3 or 4 years. You guys I see every week, and you provide much more love and affection than she does. I hope she doesn't watch this video. It's also important to find, in that same tone, I hope it's important to find safe friends or family that you can confide in, that you can trust. So if you go to a family thing and you know that Uncle Bill's going to be there and he's going to say something racist, who can you go to that's a safe person to talk to? Or can you sit on the other side of the table? Right? You can say something, Benji. What's up? You can go to your mom. Yeah. Good answer. Extra candy cane for Benji. It's true. Go find your safe person. Who's your safe person that you can come to, even if it's a friend that you can text during dinner to, like, which is something that we do in our family. If we go to a family thing like we did this week, we have a group of friends that we have a chat with that we'll send updates to, just to let them know that we're alive and we're getting through it. And it's fun commentary. It's like having a secret little friend with you. So it's important to find these spaces where we can find connection and love in the midst of maybe some difficult experiences coming up, right? We only get so much time and only so many years of Christmases, especially if we have little ones. So it's important to really take care of that, right? So let's remember the intent of the holidays. So I think sometimes our traditions override the purpose of the holidays, right? So sometimes they lose meaning, sometimes they've been absorbed or changed. Christians are really good about taking pagan holidays and turning them into Christian holidays, if you look at the history behind it. And sometimes the meaning can get lost. So I wanted to do a little exercise here. Let's fill in the blank. Christmas is the season of joy, giving, candy canes. That's the theme for today. Okay, so that's what we're going to say today in 2022, right? So in 2018, around this time, I'd say people would say that it's a season of giving, right? That's what we would currently say, yeah? So, but if it was 1840, it would be the season of charity. This is around the time that Charles Dickens wrote It's a Christmas Story. The big thing about Christmas was giving to the poor, helping those who are in need, right? In the year 800, it would be the season of coronation. This is when Charlemagne was coronated on Christmas Day in 800 AD. And there was other kings in the following years that were all coronated in 800. So Charlemagne was the emperor, but later on there was other kings. In 400, you wouldn't say anything because Christmas wasn't celebrated. There was a church schism in 325, and so they just stopped celebrating Christmas. It was too closely connected to the schism that people had a problem with. So in 1370, this is my favorite one, Christmas is the season of partying. In the Middle Ages, from about 1100 to 1647, Christmas was a very raucous, like, alcohol-driven party. It's fueled, like it's from Christmas until January 6th was just a wild party. And the reason it ended in specifically 1647, the Puritans got control of England, and they said no more Christmas because the Puritans were not fun. They didn't believe in fun, so they said no more Christmas, no more parties, because people got crazy in the Middle Ages for Christmas. Also, they only lived to like 30, so you gotta have fun at Christmas at some point, right? So, but this is something interesting I found. I did a lesson last year around this time for youth group about the history of Christmas, and I found that Christmas isn't always the biggest holiday. It is now. If you ask anybody, what's the biggest holiday of the year? It's Christmas, and that has a lot to do with consumerism and how the budgets and ending all that stuff. But for centuries, Christmas wasn't the biggest party. It was Easter, obviously. Easter was the highlight of the year. It arose as a celebration from Jesus' birth around the 2nd century, and they did it around December 25th or on December 25th because there was a Roman holiday that celebrated the solstice. So the Christians were like, oh, we have a holiday that celebrates a different son, and that was Jesus. So it was intentional, which if you look at a lot of holidays, Christians seem to overlap the dates of other holidays for pagans or for other groups because they wanted to either incorporate it as a way of outreach or as a way of whitewashing that holiday. So it's a colonization tactic. But then Christmas really exploded in the 1800s with Charles Dickens and all these stories about Christmas and giving and love. That's when Christmas started to really expand. And then in the Victorian era, there's even more stories, and that's when you get, what's the one, up on the rooftop, or Old Saint Nick, the poem. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, thank you. When that came out, that brought this nostalgia for Christmas, and it really turned into the holiday we see it today. But Easter was the biggest Christian feast day of the whole church calendar, and everything revolved around Easter for a very long time. In fact, Justin will like this one too. This is the liturgical calendar. It's kind of hard to read, but I want you to see the big open spot. See what season it's incorporated with? Summer. It's because how long were people farmers and worked in agriculture? They didn't have time to feast and celebrate when they were gardening or working on the farms all summer. So you can see that the church calendar starts at Advent. So next week is the beginning of the church calendar, even though it's technically the end of our calendar year. Advent's the beginning of the church calendar. And so we go through Christmas and then Epiphany, and then we go to Lent, and then by the time we get through Lent, we're at Easter, right? So you can see how so much of the calendar is focused on Easter. And then after Pentecost, 40 days after Easter, we get to this. It's called a common time or ordinary time, and that's intentional. It has to do with the seasons and the flow of when food is available. So we have more feasts and festivals in the fall because all the food's ready. So it was all purposeful, and yes, some of it overlapped with other holidays, but that goes back centuries, even hundreds and thousands of years of celebrating the harvest and all these things, and then the Christians just put it on top of that. So it shows a lot of this is a good example of how our church calendar follows Easter even more than it follows Christmas, even though Christmas is the start of that season. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So it intentionally overlapped pagan feasts that Christians kind of co-opted, and from other European cultures. It was a little bit of a colonization tactic. Okay, so this little mini holiday TED Talk that we did just a minute now shows us that the initial purposes of holidays have changed, and they've morphed as culture has evolved over time. So we've absorbed things, we've removed things, like Christmas means something different today than it did 100 years ago, and just like everything else in our culture. So even if we wanted to celebrate Christmas like the old days, or whatever, what does that mean? Because the old days could mean something different depending on how far back you go, and not everybody can agree on what the old days were or what that meant. So how do we move forward now, and purposely, to make the holiday more meaningful? Now that we've been through all of this sadness and the depressing stuff we've talked about, well, I think it's important that we talk about making space for all of it. And I think it's important that we remember that family in our time together is more important than the traditions that we follow. And traditions can be an important thing, something to look forward to. Playing board games every year, that's something exciting that you're looking forward to. But if we put the board games over the family, or about maybe winning the board games over the family, that can put a damper on the holidays, because if Dan loses every year, he doesn't lose every he may not want to play board games anymore, right? Okay? So I think having an understanding that maybe our traditions aren't the gold standard. And this is the benefit of having a more global society, is that we can see what everyone else is doing. I just saw a video on TikTok last night that they have this family was celebrating, it must have been Thanksgiving early or something. They put red Solo cups on a table upside down, and you just had to pick one and see what prize was underneath. And either it was like money or candy. What you didn't want was an egg, because you had to put the egg on your head. So it's just a fun little game. It's a new tradition they must have started, or maybe it's something they've done for years. Who knows? But we can see these things and see how other families celebrate. On Jenny's dad's side of the family, they have a big gift exchange every year, and it's just a silly one. It's you get something cheap, and then, but the way we do the gift exchange is different every year. Sometimes it's like a Yankee swap or a white elephant, or sometimes it's like it's you have to wrap it or don't wrap it, or it's every year it's different. that the rules are different every year. But it's fun to have that tradition where if somebody gets something really dumb that they don't want every year. So it's important to choose the family over the tradition. I'm here to tell you that just because you've always done it a certain way, or you always go to this family member's house, you don't have to. You can say no, especially if it causes pain or continues a bad family cycle. You don't have to do that. You can break that cycle. You can be the one to say no. And I think it's really important, especially people with little kids. You only have so many years with those kids. You're gonna after a couple of years, you're gonna look back and say, why didn't we celebrate differently? We wasted so many years at Uncle Paul's house, and Uncle Paul sucks. So it's important to not put our family first, but put the idea of family first, and do what feels good about the holidays rather than obligations. I hate obligations. Ugh, I hate having to do things. And learn how to say no if there's too many things. Like when I was little, I think it was even before I was born, my mom and my dad and my brother did 4 Christmases in one day, and my dad said, never again. So then Christmas was at our house after I was born, because he was tired of opening presents and then having to leave those presents that we just opened to go to 4 different houses, then come back at the end of the day and you're exhausted and you can't even build your Legos. What's the point of Christmas if you can't build your Legos? So I think it's important to remember that you can say no. You don't have to make all of it, and we have technology where you can just FaceTime or Zoom into any family event anywhere in the world, and you don't have to go. You can stay in your jammies at home all day, and that's like the best thing about Christmas is just, for me, it's like staying home. It's so good. I hate going out. And also another thing is family doesn't always mean blood. Sometimes the family that you choose is just as important as the family that you share genetics with. I know a big thing in the past 10 years or so is friendsgivings, right? Having big parties with your friends and celebrating, which can be a lot more fun sometimes than going to Thanksgivings with your family. And you can create those traditions. You can create traditions that have new meaning for you, rather than having to do the same old thing every year and be disappointed, because like Larry said, we only have so much time on this earth, and we have to find the purpose and meaning in that life, or else it's gone and there's nothing else you can do about it. So how can we as a church community make space for all of these things in the holidays? The sadness, the grief, the loss, the pain, and also the joy and the love and the celebration. How do we become a hub for people who are looking for a family, maybe? Or can our own families make space for people who are looking for new traditions? Are there ways that we as a community can do that for people? Another quick example from my family. My mom's side of the family, every Thanksgiving, we have it in like October because my grandparents were snowbirds, so they'd go to Florida in November, and we wouldn't see them for half the year. But we would always have early Thanksgiving in October, and there was always stray people that came with us. My aunt is a pastor, and she always brought people in that, like, they were either refugees or people that didn't have a family, and they would just show up at Thanksgiving, and we're like, hey, welcome. So we called them strays. We always had people come in that weren't in the family that just came as part of Thanksgiving, and it was great. We got to learn something new about people we didn't have any connection with. So it was really cool. So as we wrap up today, hope you can celebrate and grieve and lament and honor all of your traditions, and do it with purpose. If there's something that doesn't work, then scrap it and do something new. We don't have enough time on earth to waste it to drive 4 hours to Great Aunt Shirley's house for burnt pumpkin pie. So it's important to find meaning, to cut things out, add other things in, enjoy the people you love, and tell them that you love them. Those are all important things. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for everybody who could make it in the snowstorm. We pray that as we move through the holiday season, we can do so with joy and with grief, and we can honor and respect the people around us that aren't feeling the same way as us. We're grateful for this time together. Help us to get home safely and to make it through the snow. And we're just grateful for everything that we have and for everyone in our community. Amen. Thanks so much for coming, everybody, and have a great Thanksgiving.